Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about The Boys television adaptation and its treatment of Hughie and why that has sparked so much controversy on the internet in the last couple of weeks. Now as we talk about this, I will be talking about The Boys Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, even the last episode. So if you're not completely caught up to date, then I recommend you click away from this video right now. This is the last spoiler warning and your last, well, I guess, warning. So we're not going to be spoiling all the plot. This isn't going to be like an analysis of the entire Boys plot. We're focusing entirely on Hughie. Now, why am I doing it like this, by the way? Because I don't really know what's DMCA-able and what's not. Amazon is a bit litigious, and I know other people put clips and stuff into their videos, but I don't want to be sitting here fighting DMCA claims for like 3, 4, 5 days, getting my video demonetized instantly. So I'm just going to kind of play it easy. And we're just going to be using some pictures here, okay? So who is Hughie? This is Hughie. This is a character who starts The Boys, and his treatment has always been kind of considered controversial because he was never taken very seriously to begin with. In the very first episode, his girlfriend is murdered right in front of him as he holds her bloody arms, and all her blood and guts are spilled over him. Later on, he has to commit murder against some superheroes, and once again, the blood and guts gets over him. The blood and guts getting over Hughie is a recurring theme. Despite this, his mental health is never taken very seriously, and it's played up for laughs, which is fine. It is kind of a comedy show, but as more and more characters start to have more dramatic scenes, a lot of people start noticing that Hughie was never taken very seriously, that there did seem to be a preference for women into how seriously their mental health was taken. That's not to say that no male characters were taken seriously, but it did seem that they were preferred in the show more and more. Now, this wasn't really a big issue. There was no conspiracy here. Nobody was really talking about this, but it started to become more and more obvious as the show went on, and in particular in the last season, especially with some of the comments from the writers, that they just kind of don't really seem to take men's mental health, and their treatment of it very seriously. They don't really seem to take men very seriously. I myself am a very progressive, liberal kind of person, and I often notice that shows like this and progressives often kind of fall into this trap where they try to take women so seriously that the only time jokes can land anymore is on male characters, because many of the situations that male characters find themselves in would be considered improper and no longer funny if a female character was in that situation. I'm not saying male and female to try to do it some incel way. I'm just trying to describe the situations here. At either rate, as we move into the show, we have Hughie, and Hughie is a naive character. He's not taken very seriously, and bad things happen to him. It's just kind of considered to be funny all the time. It's funny, 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 funny. And it doesn't really get mentioned. Going into season 2, it's still funny. Going into season 3, it's still funny. But going into season 4, there's a shift here. A lot of people are tired of Hughie no longer being taken. Well, I shouldn't say no longer. He was never taken seriously. A lot of his issues never really seem to be taken seriously. And he always plays the back foot to other characters. Despite constantly having trauma and bad things happen to him, he always seems to need to play second fiddle to his girlfriend. His girlfriend's trauma is always considered more serious than him. It was never really that big of an issue, though, but it did start to become, let's say, a wart on the show that never really got addressed. Going into season 4, we're going to start to go into big issues here. What happened in season 4? Hughie's absent mother came back. Now, this is his mother who left him as a kid when he was 3, 4, or 5, something like that. She said nothing. She ditched the family, and she never came back to them again. And she is introduced into the show. And what was her reason for why she left? She said she was depressed. In fact, you can see this right here. But I was depressed. That's literally it. They literally phrased it like that. I'm not exaggerating whatsoever here. And for some reason, the show's writers seem to take it that it was on Hughie to forgive her because she was depressed, so she abandoned him. This was always considered very weird to me for the last couple of months that this has been out here. It's always been weird to me. It's made no sense to me. Why is her being depressed an acceptable excuse? And in fact, if a male character came back, a father figure or something like that, if he came back and said, oh, I abandoned you because I was depressed, would anyone have any sympathy for them? And yet the mother characters played up for sympathy because she was depressed and she left him. Now, to be clear, the show often treats it like Hughie needs to be the one to forgive her, that it's on him, his prerogative, his mandate is to forgive her, and if he isn't, then he's kind of being mean. And I might be exaggerating a little bit, but that's kind of how the show plays it out. And this is kind of where a lot of people started to notice that the shift was sort of happening, that rather than just being comic relief, that Hughie just started to be straight up a punching bag, especially at the expense of furthering female characters. This was kind of like, it was always kind of there, but this is a big notice where like some random woman who's just introduced into the show somehow is written for more sympathy than Hughie. Now you could disagree with me in the comments or do anything like that, but that's kind of how I took it. It was really off-putting to me. No male character, no father could ever come back and get sympathy for the things that she said. No, that would never happen. I do agree a father figure could come back in a show and eventually get sympathy, but it would, the way they wrote this and did this just felt very off and weird to me. Later on, Hughie had to euthanize his own father. As you can see here, it was a very powerful performance. He cried. It was a big deal. This was obviously something that tore the character apart mentally. It scarred him. It destroyed him. He had to literally kill his own father. Think about that, everyone. I want you to actually mentalize that. All of you have fathers, I'm presuming. I mean, someone had to birth you, right? Well, I guess your mother birthed you, but you get what I mean, right? You get the idea. At any rate, imagine you had to put down at the very least one of your parental figures. And when you phrase it like that, boy, that's super messed up. And Hughie had to do that on the show. This was not played up for a joke. This was not played up for a laugh. This was a very serious, like 5-minute scene. It was played out throughout the entire episode. It was a very serious scene, not played up for laughs at all. So, did the show then finally start to take Hughie more seriously? In its second to last season, did we stop doing funny things to this character to make him... No, actually they didn't. In the very next episode, and I'm not joking, in the very next episode, Hughie was then captured and put into a sex dungeon wherein he was pissed on, yes, literally pissed on, and the character was going to cut him open and then fuck the hole in him. This is played up for laughs. This is funny, right? You all laugh at this picture right here because this is obviously a humorous situation where a male character who has been pissed on, who obviously has not consented to any of this, is now about to be raped in his stomach. This is played up for laughs. But don't take my word for it. In fact, take the words of the actual creators of the show. And this is what sparked a lot of this controversy in addition to that. So let's go through an interview here. The interviewer asks, let's start with the Tech Knight sex dungeon part. Where did the idea come from, and why bring Hughie into this situation now, kicking him when he's down by having him sexually assaulted by his childhood hero after his dad just died? The writer responds, well, that's a dark way to look at it. We view it as hilarious. They go on to completely skip the point. Obviously, Tech Knight is our version of Batman, and we wanted to really play around with that trope. Batman's fascist underpinnings as a really wealthy dude who hunts poor people and then profits off the incarceration. So that was one. Tech Knight was already set up to be a freak, so we were kind of already halfway there. Then the notion, blah, 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 blah. Did you notice how they didn't answer this question at all? And in fact literally said we view it as hilarious. They viewed this as hilarious. This made a lot of people uncomfortable because they were viewing it as hilarious. And rather than the writers going back and saying, oh, our tone in the scene might have been a bit poor here, oh, we kind of did this poorly, they said, oh no, this is actually funny. Now my question for you, and this is a very serious question for you that I'm gonna ask right now. If a woman was in this situation, would this be hilarious? Would they ever show a woman in this situation in a show? Other than completely outrageous slasher fix, where the whole thing is grotesque things like this, would this be acceptable? Would this be an acceptable situation for a woman to be in a popular mainstream show? No, obviously not. That would never happen. In fact, I can't think of that ever happening. But let's move on. So in addition to this, in the next couple of episodes, Hughie then gets raped by a shapeshifter. A shapeshifter takes on the disguise of his fiancée, well, I guess at the time his girlfriend, and has sex with him multiple times, over and over and over. Now, why would I call this rape? Because we've all agreed that this is rape. Every one of us have agreed this is rape because this already happened in culture. But let's look at the thing here. He says, I thought it was you. Does this get played up? Do we talk about Hughie's feelings in this? Do we talk about the fact that Hughie had sex with someone who he thought was his girlfriend, but instead was actually a shapeshifter. Is that played up seriously? Is this taken as like an actual topic? Do we finally bring up Hughie's mental health? Throughout this season, he had his absent mother come back and revisit his life, to which he had to apologize to her for some reason for being mean. He got his father killed and no one seemed to really care. He got raped and pissed on in a sex dungeon, and once again no one seemed to really care. In fact, it was hilarious. In fact, he then got raped again by a shapeshifter, and what was the response? Now, I'm not trying to say that this actor has written this, so don't take it out on her. She just reads her lines, and maybe this would even be a reaction that a character could have in this situation. She said, yeah, and as long as you were getting laid, you didn't look too close. This is in response to him not noticing too quickly that it was a shapeshifter. She gets angry. She says, how did you not notice it was a shapeshifter? I think that would be a reasonable reaction. That would be a reasonable thing for this situation, right? But do we ever go back to it? Do we ever talk about it again? Do we ever mention this another time? No, in fact. Hughie's point never really seems to get mentioned at all, ever, and that seems to be the end of that. Let's look at a picture here real quick. This is a picture from a great movie. It's not a great movie. That was a joke. Please don't take it seriously. This is a movie from called Revenge of the Nerds. This is a movie back in the 80s, in fact. In this movie, a male character pretended to be this girl's boyfriend. And then he had sex with her because she thought it was her boyfriend. This scene, obviously played up for laughs originally, did not become very funny after a lot of people started to think, yo, that's kind of got a rapey vibe to it. Later on, in Robot Chicken, I know that we've all agreed that this was kind of really rapey because Robot Chicken themselves did a little skit, Revenge of the Nerds, wherein a judge sentences the nerds to jail. Multiple counts of sexual identity theft and rape that used from the next sentence. This was a sketch. Now, this came out 12 years ago on YouTube, but it came out nearly 20 years ago. Sorry, you guys are getting old. It came out nearly 20 years ago on Cartoon Network, on Adult Swim. People knew about this. People have talked about this. In fact, I had an interview. I didn't actually bring it up here, but the show's creators have talked about this as well and talked about how they don't kind of like that scene anymore and how they really should have played it out differently. Because if you assume someone's identity and use that to have sex with someone, that would then, yes, count as sexual assault and or rape. Probably both, yes. But in this show, it is never played up for that, which starts to feel very double takey. It starts to feel very two standardsy. Once again, if bad thing happens to male character, then it's funny. If bad thing happens to female character, then it's traumatic. And to this day, we have still not gotten closure with Hughie having anyone take him seriously. Maybe in the final season, we might finally get there. But as for now, as of me making this video, nobody has taken Hughie seriously. And this is starting to really get frustrating for people. Because again, as I've mentioned earlier, as people who are liberal, as people who are progressive, it starts to really feel irritating when people, in fact, kind of make fun even of the progressive movement by they're taking it the other way now. Now, I'm not trying to do a whole like conservative rage bait thing here, but what I'm trying to say is, dude, you cannot do this repeatedly where a male character is not taken seriously, where sexual assault against a male character is not taken seriously. You're being just as bad in a different direction. You are, and that's deplorable, especially in a show where Starlight, the female character right here, the woman, I don't know, I'm trying to be descriptive here. The woman right here got sexually assaulted in the first season. And what happened? Well, it was a very big deal. It was a huge plot arc. Lots of things happened. It was empowering that she finally accused her rapist, that she finally got him thrown out of the set, and it was considered traumatic when he was brought back. This was a big deal. Starlight getting raped was a very big deal. Hughie getting raped is hilarious. Hughie getting raped is his fault. So that's all I have to say on this topic here, because I really dislike this, and I feel like I feel like things like this completely cheapen a progressive movement. You can't call yourself feminist if you don't also consider men to be equal to women. If women are equal to men, then men are equal to women, right? That's both ways. It cuts both ways, right? So that's all I'm trying to say here. I find this very controversial, and I find this in extremely poor taste. And I really hope going forward into the next season that they write in some scenes, write something in, and give some actual closure to Hughie. Give us something to work with, okay? Because the dude has done nothing wrong. Over and over, he is a character written to be naive, and yet still, despite being naive, he's trying to do the right thing over and over and over, and bad things keep happening to him. Innocent characters having bad things happen to them is not funny, even if it's a man. It might be funny a few times as shock humor, but we're going on to the 5th season of you doing the same joke, and it's not funny anymore, dude. It's not funny. This is not funny anymore. Like, it ceased to be funny. You've crossed the line. You've gone overboard. You've become too much, okay? And that's all I have to say. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. Give me your thoughts in the comments. Thank you, everybody. And as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.